Again, I want to thank for the invite to be here today, and I really appreciate it. And my name is Max Zuni. I'm the governor from the Pueblo of Isleta. And as you well know, we are located just south of Albuquerque, right in the middle of one of the largest cities here in Albuquerque and the growing population of Las Lunas and Belen. And we have a lot of kids here in APS, and that is the reason I'm here. We have to support our kids as much as we can. And I meet with all the superintendents for the last several years. This is almost my 12th year that I've been in this kind of office. And we have an agreement, and I hope you understand that we have a really serious MOA with the Valencia superintendent and the school board. And several years ago, we started one here in the APS. And as you well know, our kids are very important. They're very vital for us. They are our future. And as we all know, education is important, plus health. And we try to get our young kids to be safe and to be educated, to learn. And one thing I know, and I've understood, that our community, our state here, sometimes forget about the history. And that is what I'm trying to encourage with APS, with Valencia, and the state of New Mexico. To try to encourage the school systems to teach more on the history of New Mexico, the Pueblos, the Native Americans that are here, all the different cultures that are here, and how we've existed for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's very important for our young people to learn that and how proud they should be to live here in New Mexico. And that's what I do when I go to the schools. I touch their heart. I tell them the history, not only of the state, of the Pueblos, but our village. Another thing I encourage our young kids is our language and our culture. As you well know, our kids can learn up to 5 different languages. And our young kids now, because of the English language being so dominant, and I'm trying to encourage our young people to speak our language so they can carry it on in the future. Like I said, they are the future of our community. And I hope, and I prayed today, I asked for the Spirit, for the wisdom and the knowledge and the patience you both will need to guide our school systems. And everybody here, I prayed to the Spirit for the ones that have kids, grandkids, and especially the ones that have great grandkids, to have a beautiful summer and a nice year, and to support our children here in our community, in our state, and to look forward to when they grow up. And I always tell the young kids, when they look into the future, they might be sitting in your seats or standing here. So again, thank you so much. Hawu, Kowatsi, Yatahe, Arish Parana, Ohio Gazaimasta, Sausi Hai, Maraba. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Zuni. Now it's time to meet our candidates. Dr. Thomas Ahart is from Des Moines, Iowa. He spent a decade as superintendent of the Des Moines Public Schools. He is now an educational consultant with the Council of the Great City Schools. Our next candidate is Dr. Gabriela Duran Blakey. She is from Albuquerque and currently serves as the Chief Operations Officer for Albuquerque Public Schools. Before that, she was one of the district's associate superintendents for leadership and learning. Once again, you can learn more about both candidates by visiting aps.edu. During this next section, each finalist will have about 10 minutes to introduce themselves and share some career highlights. During our morning session, we started with Dr. Blakey, so during this session, Dr. Ahart, we will begin with you.
Good morning. It's a privilege to be here with you all, and it's encouraging to see how many folks showed up for the earlier session as well as the session right now. Clearly, there's an investment in the success of APS in your community, and that's really refreshing to see. My name is Thomas Ahart. I'm a career public educator. I've been in the business for 34 years, if you don't count my experience as a student in the public system. I've served in a wide range of roles as a school improvement consultant, as a curriculum director, a human resources director, a principal, an associate superintendent for teaching and learning, and finally as both a superintendent and a teacher. And I highlight those two on the slide there because to me, they're crucially important. I was in the classroom for 11 years in 2 different districts. I was in the classroom long enough to really understand what it takes to be a good teacher, what those ebbs and flows the teachers experience over the course of a year, over the course of several years, feel like. I understand that, for instance, that February is the longest month from a teacher's perspective. I understand the impact that seemingly insignificant decisions at central office can have on the classroom environment. So that dynamic between the student and the students and the teacher is really in the forefront of my mind in all of my decision making as a superintendent. A little bit about Des Moines, where I spent 14 years of my career, 10 as superintendent. Even though it's in Iowa, and I think a lot of people envision Iowa as a bunch of people that look just like me, that's certainly not the case in Des Moines. 68% or more of our students were students of color. Our students were born in over 100 different countries from around the world and spoke over 100 different languages. About 22% of our students were language learners. 13% of our students had IEPs, and our poverty rate was bumping up against 80%. So it's truly an urban district, one not quite as large as APS, but one that shares both the blessings and the challenges that come with having a very diverse student population. Quickly touching on education, I'm trying to cover my entire life here in 10 minutes. It seems like I was in college forever. I got my bachelor's degree, and then I went to another year of schooling to get my teaching credentials. And then I got my master's of public administration while I was still in the classroom, thinking that I would leave education after I was finished teaching, because at the time I just didn't see the appeal of most education roles outside of the classroom. That obviously didn't happen. I've stayed in public education in a wide range of roles, but the master's in public administration has been super beneficial to me as a superintendent, particularly in sort of those non-educational functions like business and finance and human resources. I think that's something that sets me apart from maybe a lot of superintendents, and it's been extremely helpful for me to have that perspective from a management standpoint. So how do I approach leadership as an educator? How do I see the job of the superintendent? I want to share with you a couple of sort of my sort of the driving philosophy behind how it is that I operate. First of all students can learn and succeed. And by all students, I mean every single student. How we serve every single one of those students does not look the same. Our system looks like we place students on a conveyor belt, either as a preschooler or a kindergartner, and expect all of them to matriculate at exactly the same pace all the way through 12th grade and graduation. Obviously, that is not realistic, although that's the situation that we're sort of forced to modulate. So it's really important that we understand, in my second bullet there, equity, that equity really has to be the driving force behind school improvement. We're not going to get results that look equal if equity isn't driving how it is that we serve our students. All staff are crucial to the success of our students. And that's not just instructional staff. Clearly, teachers are the single most important variable in how students learn, followed by the principal. But every single employee of a district needs to have that ownership and investment and understand that how they go about their day and how they accomplish their work has an impact on how successful our students are going to be. And finally, people matter. Peter Drucker, I think, says it really well. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. Our schools need to feel like a place where we want to be, where our kids want to be, where our staff wants to be, and that we're all rowing in the same direction with a shared mission. If we don't have that right, then following all the best practice research in the world is not going to get us to where we need to get with our young ones. Stewardship is something that I take very seriously and has been a theme throughout my administrative career. It's really important in order to build partnerships with our community and have the trust of our community, that we recognize that we're operating with public funding and we're serving our public's most valuable asset, which is our children. We need to take that very seriously and make sure that we're leveraging all of our resources as effectively as possible for equitable outcomes for each of our students. Continuous improvement is a must, not just as we serve our students, but how we operate all the functions of the district. We always must be getting better year over year. Everyone must contribute. It's awesome to see in Albuquerque here that there are so many people clearly engaged in the success of the district. And that the board has taken some really progressive steps in how they're going to operate as a governance team. That's super encouraging because it really does take everyone. Just our official school staff will never be able to cover all of the needs that we're trying to fill for our students. Partnerships, hugely important. I can speak for probably for an hour on all the partnerships that I've been involved with. But again, what we're doing as a school system has a direct impact on the quality of life in the community. And obviously the quality of life of our students and their families. And our community needs to understand that we can't fulfill every want, everything that our students need alone. And so to be smart and to really provide wraparound quality services, everything that our students need in order to be successful as a student, we really do need to be, and I know APS does this already, we need to be smart and progressive in how we establish partnerships in the community to make sure that we have that safety net for all of our kids. This is probably the most important thing, I think, to define how it is that I view the educational process and how a teacher can be successful, how a school can be successful, how a district can be most successful, and that is really focusing on student agency, student voice. If you read that bottom portion up there, I hate reading slides to people, but hopefully everybody can read that. All of our students are real people. And a lot of them, I learned this as a teacher, are smarter than we are. They've not had the benefit of the experiences, the life experiences that we've had. But they're thinkers and they're doers, and if we can capitalize on that and ensure that what they want is and what they need is being responded to in kind in the classroom and their school experience, then we're halfway there. So thank you very much for your kind attention, and for those of you who were here earlier for the duplicate message in large parts. And I appreciate the privilege of having a chance to speak with you today.
Thank you, Dr. Ahart. Dr. Blakey, you were next.
Thank you, and thank you all for joining us this morning. It really is invigorating to have so many people that have joined us in the first session and now and it shows your commitment to our kids, and we couldn't do this without us working as a community. So I hope that you continue this partnership with us, and this isn't the last time that we see you as we go on a journey together in serving our students. For those of you that were here in the first session, I will be repeating what I did, except for this time I'm really nervous because two of my teachers are in the audience, and they make me nervous because I just reverted to being in high school and trying to get out of PE class, but I hope to make them proud as well. And I also am putting myself out there with my high school picture, so I figured I'm going all out during this process. I might as well just put it all out there. So this is me. I'm Gabriella Blakey, and I grew up in Albuquerque. And one of the reasons that I'm putting the schools on here is because the values that I take forward in my leadership were solidified in my growing up in Albuquerque public schools. And my parents taught me at a very young age the importance of public education. My grandparents taught us the importance of public education and in believing in public education and going to our neighborhood schools. And I grew up in our neighborhood schools, going to Sandia Base, Van Buren, and I graduated from Highland High School. And I'm really proud of my time that I had and what the foundation that it set for me. And I hope for all of our students that graduate from Highland and that attend Van Buren, that they someday get the opportunity that I have today to be able to represent themselves and their school in a position that they've strived for their whole life. And so I hope that that opportunity isn't just an anomaly, but that that's what we have in store for all of our children. I grew up in very diverse schools here in Albuquerque, and because of that background, I take great pride in valuing diversity. And I feel more comfortable in situations where people are different than me, and I value that because I think that that's part of how I grew up. I am used to being around different people. I see people as assets, and it's really important to me in growing and in valuing our community that I'm around people that are different than me. I also had an experience when I was in middle school at Van Buren, and I was 11 or 12 years old, so for a life experience, it probably was very different as an 11-year-old as how I remember it as an adult. But we were doing I had a friend, Diana, we were in classes together, studied together, and we were doing a toy drive and a food drive during the holidays. So the intent was that we bring all the donations together and then we go deliver it to families. So we delivered the basket and all the toys. We went right across the street pretty much from the school into an apartment upstairs. And out of the apartment, there were about 7 children came out from the back, really excited about their presents. And my friend Diana came out from the back. And it was during that time that I quickly realized that in order to get equal outputs in our students, we have to have equitable inputs. And my life experience is very different than Diana's. But in school, we worked together, we competed together, and we grew up together. But it's important to know that what it takes to be able to get people to that spot. And I think that I value that, and I take that very seriously in my work that I do with the community. So I was a teacher, I still have teacher in me. So I just want to take a time to have you think about a child that's important to you. And just get that child in your head as we go through this next few minutes together. The child important to me is my niece, Saya. Saya is in preschool at Whittier Elementary School. So Saya will be attending kindergarten next year. And her world is going to be totally different when she graduates from high school than from the world we're seeing right now with our students. But it's also our responsibility as the adults to create that environment for her as she enters kindergarten this fall. And I know my commitment to Saya as my niece that I want the best opportunities for her. But I take that commitment very seriously in all of our children in Albuquerque, that as I make decisions, I do them in the best interest of Saya and the best interest of all children. And those children you're thinking of right now, I make the decisions in the best interest of them because that is the way that I think about things. I believe that every child in Albuquerque Public Schools will graduate with the skills, attributes, and knowledge to achieve their future goals. And every decision will be made in the best interest of every child to reach their potential. And that's from me as superintendent to every employee in the district, that the decisions that we make and the teaching that we do in the classroom is the expectation that we have for our own children. I just want to really quick remind you of the goals that the board established working with community members like yourselves last year. And those goals are early literacy, math, post-secondary readiness, and skills, habits, and mindsets. But the roadmap of how we're going to accomplish those goals that you all have set forward for us is through our strategic plan. And our strategic plan has 4 priorities: clear expectations, rigorous instruction, engaged students, and responsive and coordinated systems. But I want to give you a little bit of an insight into some of the expectations that you can have for me under my leadership in these priorities. So the first priority, clear expectations. What you can expect from me is that we will demand accountability for student outcomes of all levels of the district. And more importantly, we will create systems of support and levels of autonomy within our schools. We will meet continuously with staff, community, and students to get a clear understanding of what keeps the district from achieving our goals and ways in which we can remove those barriers. So it's in listening to people like yourselves that we can get a sense of what's stopping us and how we can push forward to be able to get through those barriers. And the third thing I'd like to do is decentralize central office and increase decision-making closer to the school. I firmly believe that some of our answers are in the people that are closest to the problems. And so being able to listen to people and give autonomy at schools to be able to make some of those decisions is really critical in us being able to move forward. The second priority is rigorous instruction. I'd like to collaborate with the community and members like yourself to provide high dosage tutoring. We know that high dosage tutoring works, and we know that we have partners such as yourself that are willing to provide those opportunities for students before school, after school, and during the school day. So I would like to leverage those partnerships to be able to provide this type of tutoring for our students who are struggling. I also believe that we need to ensure that the lessons in the classroom are at the current grade level standards, that a 3rd grade class in one side of the city is teaching the same tasks that are in the 3rd grade class at the other side of the city. Because we know that grade level standards are what all of our students should be able to achieve, and it's our job to make sure that that's happening. I'd like to partner with the Public Education Department to open a statewide literacy center. You may have heard about this as one of the initiatives from the state, and in looking at our own assets and resources in some of our schools, we know that we could provide the resources in order to do this. So we'd like to partner with the Public Education Department to open the first statewide literacy center right here in Albuquerque. I'd also like to increase support and training for structured literacy in our schools and support our teachers in meeting the individual needs of our students. Engage students. For engaged students, what you can expect from my leadership is that we would add Genius Hour to all of our elementary schools. Right now, we have Genius Hour in some of our elementary schools, which gives children the opportunity to develop kind of the right side of their brain and have a time in order to be creative and use creative outlets. It comes from looking at Google and how they give their employees an hour a day to just decide what they want to do and play around. And that's what we need to do with our students as well. We've seen a lot of success in Genius Hour in the schools that we've had Genius Hour, and we really want to make sure that all of our children have access to it. We want to make sure that we ensure middle school students have access to electives, create opportunities for high school internships with community partners, increase and establish robust career technical education programs, ensure that we have art and music in all of our elementary schools. At this time, we have them in most elementary schools, but not all of the elementary schools. I'd like to support and increase our access to bilingual programs and expand support for social emotional supports for all students. For responsive and coordinated systems, I'd like to increase the teacher residency programs, work with community partners to increase our workforce, review curriculum programs, and shift to student-based budgeting. But in all of this, my commitment to you and to my teachers that are out there is to make sure that I'm always listening, responding, leading, and delivering on our promises. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Dr. Blakey. So the APS Board of Education really wants to hear from you. They want your feedback. So when you walked into the room today, you may have seen some purple cards with a QR code on there. Please, before you leave today, share your feedback on the two finalists. The QR code is the fastest way to gather information, but if you so choose, there's also a blue card that you can do it the old-fashioned way and manually write it out. The board members are going to use your feedback as they select the next superintendent for APS district. We're now going to take a break. We are going to be taking a moment to bring our student panelists who are going to be asking the candidates for some questions. So quick moment for a break. Thank you.
Okay, we are really excited about this next segment because we are going to have students from the high school, middle, and elementary school levels giving questions directly to our candidates. So as the candidates talk about their philosophies and their policies and how they will trickle down to those in the classrooms, these are your clients. These are who you are affecting. And so we are excited about this next section. Also, across the district, students in the classrooms right now are possibly tuning in to the APS School Board of Education YouTube channel. So they are also getting to experience this process firsthand. The students in front of you worked on the questions after consulting with their classmates and teachers. More than 1,200 questions were submitted by students and members of the community, including parents, staff, and elected officials. We asked a research firm, McPherson and Jacobson. They were tasked with choosing the questions to be used throughout the day. We thank everybody that submitted those questions. And students, we thank you especially for participating today. And I'd like to introduce you to the two people who want to be your next superintendent. On your right, the far right, is Dr. Ahart. Dr. Thomas Ahart is from Des Moines, Iowa. He spent a decade there as the superintendent of Des Moines Public Schools. He is now an educational consultant with the Council of Great City Schools. The next candidate is Dr. Gabriella Duran Blakey. She is from Albuquerque and currently serves as a Chief Operations Officer for the district. And before that, she was one of the district's Associate Superintendents for Leadership and Learning. And we'll kick off this portion of the town hall by watching a video prepared by students from Valley High School.
I want the next superintendent to be nice, kind, and puts kids first.
Friendly,
gives everybody gummy bears, tells good jokes.
successful at leading people.
Be hardworking, intelligent, and have a really fast car.
Creative, super goofy, and very involved.
Funny,
Gets along with other people.
Chill and just involved around the community.
be part of the future of APS. Let's hear your voice.
All right, and so for our finalists, let's meet our panelists. First, we have James Fung, who is a fifth grader at Manzano Mesa Elementary School. James likes math, which he finds challenging yet thrilling. He enjoys spending quality time with his family, whether watching their favorite TV shows or playing outside. James is a tech-savvy youngster who dreams of becoming a computer scientist when he grows up. Welcome, James. And next we have Sophia Frost, who is a fifth grader at Longfellow Elementary School. Sophia is on the Longfellow basketball team and is the school's spelling bee champion. Her favorite subject is reading. Welcome, Sophia. And next we have Aiden Royball, who is a Tony Hillerman Middle School 7th grader. Aiden is an avid student and a member of the track team. His favorite subject is math. Welcome, Aiden. And Kira Vanderlip, who is an 8th grader at Cleveland Middle School. Kira is a hard worker who respects her teachers and peers. She is a member of the Student Council in Drama and is president of the National Honor Society. Welcome, Kira. And Kaylee Bahi is a junior at El Dorado High School. Kaylee has a 4.0 grade point average. She is a chair of Skoden Club and serves as the student representative of Indian education for all of APS. Kaylee advocates for all Native students and plans to pursue federal Indian law after high school. Welcome, Kaylee. And finally, we have Alexa Ordonez, is a West Mesa High School senior. She has participated in cheer, girls track, Mustang Amigos, Educators Rising, and the NMAA Student Leadership Advisory Council. She is also working towards earning her bilingual seal. Alexa aspires to become a secondary teacher in Spanish language arts or Spanish while coaching cheer. Welcome, Alexa.
Thank you, Adrian. Each student will ask 2 questions for a total of 12 questions. Our finalists will have 2 minutes to respond to each of those questions, and they'll take turns answering first. So Dr. Blakey, you will start, followed by Dr. Ahart. And Alexa, please ask your first question.
They can use this one.
Good morning. With an increase in the use of technology in the classroom, there are many instances where websites are blocked, and students must use their personal phones to access the information. How will you work with the tech department and teachers to be able to give students access on their school devices?
So thank you for the question, and I have to tell you, I was really nervous that my teachers were in here, but you all are making me more nervous than the teachers. So thank you for the question. So it's really interesting because the world is changing so fast that more and more information is available on technology. And I don't know if you all were here when I was showing a picture of my niece, but she's going into kindergarten next year and thinking how technology and the information she gets is going to be so different than even you as you graduate from high school. So I think that we have to adapt faster at being able to respond to making sure that we're safe by opening up technology sites that you might need access to, and also making sure that we're keeping you safe and our system safe by making sure that we're not opening ourselves up to any hackers, or that you're not receiving any information that is unsafe for you or maybe little brothers and sisters that you might have. And I know it's important to teachers too, because more and more websites and information is going out worldwide that we need to have access to, but we need to do it in a responsible way that we're making sure we're not limiting you all from information, but we're also keeping you safe.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's foolhardy to think that we could somehow, through the expanse of the internet, control all the stuff that we think you shouldn't see. So the approach that I have used is really to err on the side of accessibility, and then selectively, when a problem has arisen, begin to put restrictions in that way. Students have so much access, and I think our job as educators has more to do with being critical consumers of what it is that you're finding and where you're finding it, rather than trying to restrict what it is that you find. So it's a challenge for sure. But I know, I try to put some restrictions on what my 12-year-old son sees just on our home internet, and I fail at protecting him as much as I think I can. So I think we need to err on the side of access, and then address issues as they may arise.
Yeah, it's Ebene. Good morning. The Martinez v. Yazzie case outlined calls to establish sufficient educational opportunities for all students. Considering that 1,000 of our APS students are Indigenous and almost 4,000 of APS high school students are English learners, what measures will you provide to ensure that our APS teachers receive adequate training to better supplement our diverse students in regard to language equity and cultural humility?
Mm-hmm. Huge challenge. I think the first step that I would need to take, especially not being native to this area, is making sure that I understand through building relationships and having two-way communication with the students as well as their families exactly what their priorities are, but also where they feel like we're not quite hitting the mark, and then craft a plan from there. I think it's really important, though, that we don't. And I think I spoke to this earlier in response to an earlier question. I think it's really important that we don't put all of the onus just on, for instance, our language learning teachers. All of our staff needs to be invested in the outcomes for each one of our students and play the appropriate role in making sure that we're honoring and respecting the cultures of the students that we're serving and enabling them to matriculate in a way that makes sense and is honoring of their background. So I would focus first on making sure I understood the challenges in place.
Thank you, and I want to thank you for the work that you do at your school. Just in hearing them introduce you, and I worked at El Dorado as an assistant principal, and I can see what you've done to be able to push the school forward and to be such a good role model for students. And so I want to thank you for what you've done. And it's encouraging students like yourself to be proud of who you are and to give back to your school to make it a stronger community, because the work that you're doing and the strides that you've made have helped some of the younger students be able to now attend El Dorado and have that empowerment in their classroom because of what you've built. And so I want to thank you for that. And part of what we need to do is encourage more students to be proud of who they are and to provide the opportunities for them to be able to succeed in school and to see it as an asset, because who you are as a person and who I am as a person, it's an asset to our community, and it should never be seen as a barrier or something that we'd have to overcome. And knowing that my niece and nephew, they're speaking 3 languages now, and that's really important and such an asset to a society where we used to be made fun of if you spoke another language, or it was seen as something negative if my family spoke Spanish in school. But now we're turning that around, and the new generation is showing that this is something to be really proud of. And learning new languages and being proud of your own language will only take you further, and we need to provide those opportunities for you.
Thank you, Dr. Blakey. Aiden, you have the next question.
How will you help get the best teachers in our schools?
that's yours,
Sorry,
yes.
I wasn't sure if it was my question. So that's our most important job, is to make sure that we have the best teachers and that we support the best teachers. And even things like if you want smaller classes or you want more electives or whatever the case may be, we have to be able to have teachers to be able to do that. And I just think I have two of my former teachers that are in the room now, and if I could replicate them to be teachers everywhere, we would be in a really good place in the school district. So investing in our teachers is a top priority. There are new programs that we're working on with like the universities to make sure that people are encouraged to become teachers, and teacher residencies where you'll get paid to be a student teacher. And encouraging people to be teachers. My nephew actually just entered his first year as a teacher at Desert Ridge and is loving middle school. So that's the first step, is making sure that they like it and encouraging them to be able to be in the place where we provide everything for them to be successful. So that I hope that in 5 years that you come and say, hey, I'm here and I'm now a teacher, and we're able to hire you even back at West Mesa to be the cheer coach and to teach, because that's what I did. I graduated from Highland, went off to school, and came back and was a teacher, but I was given the opportunity to be successful there and given the resources I need, and that's what we need to do for all of our teachers to make sure you all have the best teachers.
Dr. Ahart?
Yeah, I think that we're facing a crisis, frankly, nationally, that's only more acute in large, diverse districts like APS, where we're struggling to get enough people and certainly getting the right people into education. So it's awesome that you have that on your agenda. One of the things that I think we don't often do as educators, as school districts, is see our staff as professionals and treat them as professionals as much as we can, in the same way that they would be treated as professionals in another industry. Yes, the calendar looks different and what we're asking of them is different, but they are well-educated individuals who can choose to do with their life whatever they want. So we need to treat our professionals as professionals. We need to make our places of employment, our school districts, as attractive as possible as a place to work. One of the things we tried to do in Des Moines, and were successful, was we actually earned our way onto the Forbes list of best 100 mid-size employers through doing things specifically to attract and retain staff. We need to support folks coming into the profession. Another thing that I did was create an alternative teacher contract where new teachers got paid more but gave us more time. They got additional support and ultimately got a master's degree that we designed with a local university that gave them the skills and abilities to effectively serve the students that we were serving in our district. So it's a multi-pronged approach.
Thank you, Dr. Ahart. You will answer this next question first. This next question comes from Kira from Cleveland Middle School.
What is your stance on strict discipline versus restorative justice, and would you, as superintendent, take the time to address problems such as substance abuse, fighting, and unsafe items found at kids at school?
Yes, I lean very much toward restorative practices. I think that I think accountability is really where it's at, and we can't really hold students accountable unless there's some restorative element, right, that recognizes that harm was done to someone else, and we can't see justice unless that's recognized and reparations are made. So I lean very much on that side. Unfortunately, in our society right now, we face a lot. Our young people face a lot of dangers at a level that I know that we didn't experience when I was that age. Access to firearms is something that directly impacts schools. A whole variety of different illicit drugs, oftentimes disguised as legitimate, medications. And certainly violence of any sort is just not acceptable. However, alienating the students who are engaging in that behavior is not helping the community become stronger. So one of the things that I did, and people don't believe that this is true, but I did not kick anyone out of school for the last 8 years that I was superintendent. even if they committed an offense that would get them ejected. We met with the student and the student's family. We crafted a plan to make sure that we could continue to serve them. It wasn't in their home school. Sometimes we were able to get them back into their home school, but we stay engaged because we knew as soon as we kicked them out of school, their chances of graduating were zero. And to me, that meant we weren't doing our job. So we need to keep everyone safe first and foremost. But when students engage in that kind of behavior, if we're not helping them correct that for future situations, we're really just not doing our job. The easy route is to, punish and get them out of the population, but that's not the successful route, in my view.
Dr. Blakey.
So we're in the education business, and part of that isn't just teaching math and reading, but also teaching how to handle behavior conflicts, how to handle conflicts with other people. And so that's our responsibility, is to make sure that when students make poor decisions, that we take the time to be able to coach them out of why they made that decision and how to make better decisions, and what the onus is on what happened with the decision that they made. So as a principal, I did that all the time, and had conversations with students. It wasn't just like I looked at the matrix and said, oh, you threw something, so now you have lunch detention. It's much more important to understand why you're making the decision and how we can help think through better decisions. And those skills will take you further in life, because we have conflict all through life, even as adults. And so in school, you can learn how to work through conflicts and how to understand that. But that being said, we also need to make sure that everybody feels safe in school. And so we need to increase the mental health supports that we provide for students, and that students can get help if they need help, if they have substance abuse, if they feel like they're being bullied. School should be a safe place and a place of belonging. And the more that we can create schools into being those safe spaces, and that you have access to get safe help, and you have, like the wellness rooms that El Dorado has and West Mesa is going to have, that those are places that you can go to be able to get help, to have a safe space, and to create an environment in which you can succeed. Because it's really important that all students feel a sense of belonging in school, and that we provide those opportunities for them.
Thank you, Dr. Blakey. Dr. Blakey, the next question is yours first, and that comes to us from James, our math whiz from Manzana Mesa.
How can we have more music, art, PE, STEAM, and library time in elementary school?
I was worried you were going to ask me a math question. So it's very important to me personally to make sure that you have access to all of those things. And when I was in 5th grade, I started playing the violin at Sandia Base Elementary School. And I continue playing till now. Even as a grown-up, I play the violin in the community. And that has made me into the person that I am today. But if my school didn't provide music to me when I was in elementary school, I wouldn't have been able to have that part of myself fulfilled, because I wouldn't have had access to it. So to me personally, it's really important that students have access to art, music, STEAM, and all of those things that you talked about. So we need to make sure that we're working with the schools to have schedules in which they can have those times set aside for you, as well as, like you brought up, making sure we have the teachers to teach it. Right now I talked about it a little bit earlier, in some of our elementary schools, they have art and music every year, but in some of the other elementary schools, you have to do it every other year. So my goal is to make sure that you have art and music every year in elementary school, along with all of those other specials, so that you're able to get a well-rounded education. And in elementary school, you can start to find things that excite you and that you're really excited about, like it could be math or STEAM or art, or like me, it could be music. But if I wasn't given the opportunity, I would have never known that about myself. And so it's really important that we make sure that all schools have those things.
Thank you, Dr. Blakey. Dr. Ahart?
Would you mind repeating the question?
How can we have more music, art, PE, STEAM, and library time in elementary school?
Okay, thank you. So it is kind of a math question. Those things are hugely important, and I think something that we've had to toss around in our earlier session was how do we provide everything that we want to provide? So I think that as a district, at different levels, we need to set priorities and decide what are the non-negotiables. I'm a strong believer in education in the arts, in having, unrestricted research time in the library to explore what it is that you want to explore as an individual. And I'm also an advocate for more unstructured recess time, which is hugely important for physical and mental health of our young people too. So it's not being intimately familiar with APS right now in terms of those budgetary matters and staff availability and so forth. I think the first step is identifying what it is that we want and then ensuring that we're providing that structure so that all those things can happen for the enrichment of all of our individual students.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ahart. And Dr. Ahart, you will answer first to this next question, which comes to us from Sophia, our spelling bee champ at Longfellow.
What do you feel is the right amount of homework for an elementary school student?
That's a really good question. So I would say this. Number one, I don't want homework assigned unless it's purposeful, and I don't want homework assigned unless the student is going to be credited with that when they, not necessarily for their grade, but that it's purposeful and it's recognized that the student has done that work. I don't think at the elementary level that a whole lot of time should be expected, but I don't think, I wouldn't put a hard number on it, but I think some, depending on the course and how the student is doing in that course, could be beneficial, but I don't want school to overtake the free time that students have to pursue other passions. So, two things: it needs to be purposeful, and the second thing is I'm not convinced that it has to be consistent student to student to student in the same classroom, because all of you have different needs and different areas where perhaps some more practice would be helpful. That's probably not a very satisfying answer, is it?
So in elementary school, I don't think homework as homework for maybe how a high school student would see homework is appropriate. So homework for elementary school would be things that, this is why I'm gonna, just hear me out, Sophia. So I think that like when you're at home, you should take time to play and to read. And those things are developing your brain, but they're not considered like graded homework, but it's work you're doing at home. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think that there should be like homework done at home where you have to complete packets that might not be teaching you anything. But if you want to work on something that you just didn't really get at school and your teacher says you could do this at home to help you, then I think that that's appropriate. And that's why I think it's really important that you have books at home and that you have time to read. But I don't want reading to be seen as homework, because reading is something that should just be the same as if you're playing on your phone or you're watching TV. It's something that you do. Or maybe you play an instrument and at home you want to practice. So homework as practice, I think, is really appropriate. But homework that's graded and that you get stressed out and you're in second grade and you have to bring back the homework, I don't think that that's as appropriate.
Thank you, Dr. Blakey. You'll answer this next question first, and we'll pivot back to the other side of the table. And the next question will come from Alexa, our senior from El Dorado.
West Mesa.
Sorry.
How do you feel the district can better staff school counseling departments so they are not stretched so thin and are able to meet with students more frequently?
So I think we have to figure that out. I think it's really important, and it's not just counselors, but we also need social workers in our schools. And we're at a place where we can't just say we don't have money for it. because it's of so much importance that we're gonna have to figure it out. And it's up to the adults to put our heads together and put the number, we might need to call him to help us with the math. But to put it together to figure it out, because like I said to her question earlier, when you talk about behaviors or safety or any of these things, if we don't have the supports for you all in the schools and we're not providing counseling or mental health services, and we're just expecting that everyone's just gonna figure it out, I don't think that's responsible of the adults to do. So we're going to have to get to a place very quickly where we look at budgets, we look at personnel, and we get creative about how we're using our resources, partnering with the community, such as, I know at West Mesa, we're gonna put in a new school-based health center, how we can build those things up and partner with people so that we can provide those resources, because we know that you need them and we need to be responsible to provide those services to our students.
One of the things that I think is really important is that we're allowing individual staff to do the job that they were trained for and that they were hired for. So one of the things that I've experienced in multiple districts is your guidance counselors sort of being the shortstop of the administrative team and filling in, doing all sorts of tasks that are important tasks, but are not meeting the needs of our students in terms of what a guidance counselor is trained to do and expected to spend their time doing. So one of the things I would engage in is auditing how it is that our counselors are spending their time, and if we identified that they're being asked to do too many things that really aren't the guidance counselor's responsibility, we can remove those from their plate and ensure that they can have that time available for students. And it's really like that for a lot of those support positions. Sometimes they're not allowed to do the work that they trained for, that they want to do, and that we recognized a need for, because, you know, as things get hectic during the day, somebody who's not assigned to a specific classroom with a specific set of students looks like an available set of hands to do something else. So we need to get really high and tight on how we're allowing guidance counselors to spend their time, and social workers and mental health therapists and so forth, to make sure that they're actually doing what it is that they want to do and that we've hired them to do.
Thank you, Dr. Ahart. You will answer this next question first, and that comes from Kaylee, who is our student from El Dorado.
In regards to the APS dashboard status report of the 2022 to 2023 school year, Native American and Alaska Native high school students continue to play a large factor in dropout and low graduation rates. As a superintendent, what engagement systems for high schoolers, specifically Native students, will you advocate for and implement that will positively affect student success in schools?
Great question. One of the areas where I had success in Des Moines was raising the overall graduation rate, but largely that was done by raising the graduation rate of our Latinx students and our Black students. We had very few Native American students, but we did that through a couple of avenues. One was to directly reach out to those families on a family, literally a family by family basis, and identify what barriers there were, and then problem solving with the family. How do we get those barriers removed so that the student can be successful? So that's part of it. Part of it also is ensuring that they have programming at their school, the schools that they attend, that are meeting their needs. Because sometimes what we identify as a feeling of alienation when they come to school, and so why go to school? And so having responsive curriculum can be part of that. We added a whole host of courses, from urban leadership to history classes specific to a particular culture, that helped fill that need for a student feeling like what they were doing in school was really connected to their life experience and how it is that they wanted to develop. But I don't think there's a silver bullet, as it were. I think you really need to get down into the details of what the root cause or causes are, and you have to do that in partnership with the family and with the students, and then start crafting a plan that's responsive to those identified needs.
I think the first thing is to acknowledge that what we're doing isn't working. And so sometimes that data is hard to look at because you have to be real with it and know that if you're seeing this as a problem, that what we're doing isn't working and we need to do something different. I think one thing is to create a culture of belonging in the school, at all schools, that every student that comes on the school campus, whether there's 100 students there or 2,000 students, but every student that comes onto the campus feels loved and valued and treasured at that school, and that there's an adult that they can connect with. That has to be across the board at every school, that every child feels that way. But that being said, I think that your classes have to feel challenging to you, that you feel connected to, that you want to go to school. But most importantly, I think that the answer to your question is more with you than it is with me, because you all are closer to the students and knowing why are kids dropping out of school, but I'm closer to the resources and how we can help solve the problem. So a lot of it is in us being able to listen to you, because although I showed my high school picture earlier and I look exactly the same, which I don't, it was a long time ago when I was in high school, and even though I have friends that dropped out, why they dropped out is probably really different from why kids are dropping out now. So I can't use that same frame of reference I have on why my friend dropped out to know why students are dropping out now. So it's really important that we listen to you all, that we listen to the students who are dropping out, and that we re-engage them and we create the environments or the schools and the learning spaces in which they can succeed rather than them trying to fit into the construct of the school that we've already created.
Thank you, Dr. Blakey. You will reply first to this next question, and that next question comes to us from Aiden, the track star at Tony Hillerman.
How are you going to help end social media issues with the bullying students during the after-school hours?
Dr. Blakey, yes.
I'm going to close TikTok. Just kidding. I don't think that's very popular to this. They didn't look like that was really popular. I don't even know if TikTok is still a thing. So I think part of it is making sure that we address the proper uses of social media in school. So not just like when is it okay to use social media, but that we teach digital responsibility of why you would use social media and what is dangerous about it, I think is the responsibility for us to teach about. Even as adults, social media impacts us too. So I can only imagine like social media that I read about and how that impacts me, how that would impact you or somebody else who's in middle school or high school or even elementary school. So we have to take that pretty seriously and make sure that we understand the dangers of social media. And when you talk about bullying, one of the things that we really need to address is taking bullying seriously at all hours of the day. So it's really easy sometimes because we adults get overwhelmed and we're like, oh, well, it was social media, it wasn't during school that they posted it. But it impacts you and we're responsible for you, so we have to look into it and take that seriously. I think it goes back to kind of the thread of all of your questions too, is that we have to provide more supports of counseling and social workers and mental health support at our school so that students, if they feel bullied, we can be able to address it with them and provide environments that they feel safe. So it's not just physical environments that you feel safe at school, but we need to make sure that mentally you feel safe too and that you're not being bullied through social media. And we'll do all of that until I can close TikTok and Snapchat and whatever those other ones are that you use.
Yeah, that's a huge issue, a huge issue. In fact, when you say closing TikTok, I just remember as a middle school principal especially, I dreaded Monday mornings because that's where the kids who have been, fighting on virtually would come into contact with each other personally, and then they'd have to save face on whatever it is that they had spouted off on in social media over the weekend. So we're not going to ban social media, obviously. We're never going to shut that down. And every time we think we have a grasp on Instagram or TikTok, another thing, it seems like another vehicle pops up that we have to learn about. So I think it's really important that we have thorough education about the impact of communicating on social media, that it is just as, if not more harmful than what you engage in face-to-face, that families are part of that education. And just because, as Dr. Blakey said, if your posting happened outside of school hours, but it's impacting the lives and the opportunities for the students during the school day, then unfortunately, yeah, that's a school issue. So we need to address that and take all bullying seriously. And that can't just be a student issue, but that's something that we need to more actively engage our families and guardians in as well, to ensure that they're part of a sustained solution.
Thank you, Dr. Ahart. Dr. Ahart, you will go first for this next question, which will come to us from Kira, who is the 8th grader from Cleveland Middle School.
What is your plan to make math scores go up in middle schools?
To make math scores go up in middle school?
Yes.
Okay. Well, one of the issues so middle school across the country, there's a dip, right? Almost universally, school district to school district. So one of the things that we need to do very specifically is ensure that as students matriculate through elementary school and into middle school, that they've received equitable instruction and results in terms of math, so that so our teachers at 6th grade, for instance, aren't faced with 25 students in their classroom who are all over the board in terms of what they need for instruction, because as good as our teachers are, it's virtually impossible to differentiate at that level. So we need to make sure that our students are coming through elementary with a pretty common shared level of understanding of mathematics. And then are we meeting them where they are at 6th grade? One issue that, and I would have to look at the data more closely, a lot of times in 6th grade what happens is, because of the issue that I just talked about, is teachers find themselves having to spend a lot of time reviewing what students should already have known. So we need to make sure that the system is operating how we want it to operate, K through 5, and then make sure that we have more of a even starting off point at 6th grade, 7th and 8th, and then making sure that we're setting high expectations. Because in my ideal world, our students would be seeing Algebra 1 as the de facto 8th grade class. And so back mapping from that, ensuring that there's equity of instruction building to building, and it's not determined by zip code, would be my biggest lever there.
We're going to make sure he teaches all the math classes. So I think that part of what we need to do is that we make sure that in elementary school, all of the math that's being taught is the same at every school as far as the standards that they're being asked to pass. So that if you go to 3rd grade at Longfellow or at Manzano Mesa, after 3rd grade, there's the same basis of knowledge that you have for the math standards that continue on to when you get into middle school. I think one of the things we have to do in middle school is invest in math teachers. So maybe not take them, I know one of the principals here was a really good math teacher, so maybe we can convince her to be 2 places at once. If we could borrow your principal to be a math teacher at the same time. But to make sure that we have really good math teachers, because in middle school, what happens sometimes is that middle school teachers can teach high school or they can teach middle school. And sometimes when teachers really are committed to math and they teach high school, we're missing the commitment of teaching math at the middle school, because it's just like adult license stuff that you don't have to really worry about. But that being said, we need to make sure that middle school can invest in having really strong math teachers, because I think in order to address the math outcomes, we need to make sure that we have really good math teachers. I can say when I was a middle school principal, we raised our math scores 12%. But if somebody were to ask me, how did we do it? We invested in really good math teachers and we gave them time to plan together, and they moved students around to be able to group them together, and the teachers figured it out once I gave them the time to be able to do it. So I think looking at middle school particularly and creating schedules that give teachers the time to plan together and to address how to work with students in smaller groups, I think is doable, but we have to be able to give teachers the time in middle school to do it.
Thank you, Dr. Blakey. You will answer first for this next question, which comes to us from James.
How can after-school activities and sports be expanded in elementary school?
Thank you, James. So I think part of it is connected to your other question too, that has more specials during the day to give kids more time to do things during the day. And then looking at after school time, we really need to focus on a lot of the adults in the room that are partners with us now, and being able to open our schools up to partnerships with the city and with other after school clubs that are willing to come in and partner with us to provide those things to schools. And I think once we are able to get those partners with all of the different people in the city that care about the children and want to provide these opportunities, we need to look at kind of a map to make sure that all of the schools have something, so that we don't see a map and say, oh, that's weird, Longfellow has 17 after-school programs provided to them, and Manzano Mesa only has one. So we have to look at that to make sure, are all of our students able to access after-school activities, and are we making sure that they're free and accessible and that people are able to get to them, and eliminating all of those factors that might prohibit you from, if there's a really cool club after school but you can't go, we need to look at why you can't go and make sure that we allow you to be able to go to those clubs, and that we provide them in all of the schools.
Yeah, I think that partnerships are really key. In Des Moines, one of the things that I did was develop slowly, but over time, a partnership with the city where ultimately we had students from, we started with 5th grade and then we went down to 3rd grade. We had programs in all the major sports, soccer and football and basketball, what am I forgetting, volleyball, and I'm sure I'm missing a couple of others, cross country, with the city, where we had programs that students could participate in regardless of income level, and those were available to students at all of the schools. They didn't always participate right at their school. Sometimes they had to be transported to another school, so that we had that critical mass so that they could actually participate. And the other thing that we did was to make sure that at middle school level, what we offered was not universal. So we had some basic stuff that was the same at every school, but we had wild card stipends, is what we called them, for extracurriculars that school could decide how it is that they wanted to use that stipend. So for instance, in my old middle school, I had this group that I advised, because I didn't have anybody else to do it, that liked breakdancing. The Harding Breakers, they were called. Well, by the time we got this stipend in place, there was actually money for the principal to pay for a supervisor. They ended up performing at the White House one time for the Obamas. But it's following the passion of the kids in that particular school and ensuring that we resource it, not so it looks like every other school, but that the needs of that school are being met as much as possible.
Thank you, Dr. Ahart. You will answer this final question first, and our final question comes to us from Sophia, who is our 5th grader from Longfellow.
If we know that kids do not like certain foods, like pot stickers or beef, why does the district continue to serve them, and what can be done to make the menu more student-friendly?
Okay, people laugh, but lunchtime is a hugely important time in the day, and actually having something that you want to eat makes the rest of the day a lot better, and actually can create some positive anticipation about the next day. I'll tell a little anecdote here that helps illustrate how we've tried to, or how I've tried to approach that. We had at Meredith Middle School, one of our middle schools in Des Moines, we had these young men and a few young women who at lunchtime were sneaking out and, playing hooky. And then they would come back for class right after, right after lunch. And so they happened to be from Myanmar, what some of the adults in the room will know as Burma. They were immigrants. And they just did not, what we were serving at lunch did not appeal to them whatsoever. So they were leaving just so they could get a decent lunch. And so we had our executive chef visit with them and develop some items on the menu that they liked. And then we kind of did that with a whole bunch of different groups who said, there's nothing really responsive to my culture on the menu ever. And the other thing that we did, because we couldn't meet every single need, we had a whole bunch of condiments. The condiment table was not just ketchup, mustard, and mayonnaise. There were all kinds of stuff that were responsive to culture, so that students had a lot more choice, and a lot of the time found something that they really wanted on the menu. It's a huge challenge, but it's certainly something. I talked earlier. Every single staff person in a district plays an important role to the success of a student, and that includes food and nutrition. So that's another place where we need to listen, provide an avenue for students to communicate that, listen, and then be responsive as much as we can to meet those needs.
I bet if I ask the 6 of you to say what you want for lunch, you'll all say something different. And so we have to be able to, so then you multiply that by like 2,000 students at a school, and how can we manage to make sure that we're providing food that everybody likes, but not 2,000 different meals. I know, like, even when I go out to eat with my husband and we'll say, oh, let's share a meal, but he likes gross stuff and I like the good stuff. So we never can share a meal because we like different things. And so how can we have you all help in developing menus based on the options that we have available, and then being able to kind of compromise on, oh, I'm really excited because I know Wednesday is going to have grilled cheese and that's my favorite. So I know that I helped to develop that. And maybe on Thursday, they're gonna have steak, which I think is gross, but my husband likes. And so he's excited about Thursday because they're gonna have that. But how can we all work together to have student groups help in developing the menus with your cafeteria staff, so that you can see kind of what they have to choose from, and then you can help create it. And maybe there's a food that they don't know that you really like, and they're able to kind of say, oh, well, show us how you make that, or what are the ingredients, and then you can kind of look at how we can provide that to more people, because there might be food that I like that is from my culture that other people don't even know about. And so if I'm able to say that as part of making the menu, then other people might find that there's food that they like that they didn't even know existed too. So I think being open-minded and sharing all of our ideas and being willing to try different people's choices, I think we could make lunch a little bit better, but also give time to play during lunch too, because I know that's what he's gonna ask.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Blakey. Thank you, Dr. Ahart. That will conclude the student section of this session. And before we leave, I wanted to thank the students for participating, because your voice does matter. If you leave here without any one thing, know this, that your participation here plays a big role in deciding the outcome of this very important decision. One of these two people up here will become the new leader of the district. So we are very grateful for your participation. And ladies and gentlemen, can we give them a round of applause, please? Okay, before we conclude this portion of the town hall, we'd like to give each of our finalists a chance to say some brief words. We will give them 1 minute to do that and share some final thoughts. Dr. Ahart, we'll begin with you.
Well, first, I would just like to thank everyone for welcoming me. I know nobody knows me, and you're welcoming a stranger into your community for consideration on one of the most important functions, public functions that a community provides. I'm very impressed with the level of engagement, how many people have been at each of these sessions, and certainly impressed by the quality and articulateness of the questions that each of our students provided. You have a lot of great things going here, and it would certainly be an honor to join the team.
Thank you, Dr. Ahart. Dr. Blakey, final thoughts. 1 minute, please.
I want to thank you all, the students, for making me incredibly nervous this morning when we did fine with all the adults and then you all asked questions. But I also want to let you know that, I grew up in Albuquerque and I graduated from Highland. And so when you all were introducing yourselves or they were reading about what you wanted to do, I was just kind of seeing myself in all of you sitting there thinking like when I was in elementary school or middle school and how my teachers invested in me. And I want to make sure that we provide that to you. And it's our responsibility to make sure that all of the dreams that you just all listed that you want to do, that it's our responsibility to make sure that we give you the right skills and knowledge and attributes to be able to succeed in all of your goals. And I hope to be able to do that for you.
Right, thank you, Dr. Blakey. We're going to take a short break here in just a moment. We're going to return with some one-on-one time with the two finalists. I want to remind everybody that the board truly appreciates your feedback on the two finalists, and we ask that you utilize the QR code that is around the room. It's on the purple cards, it's in the back, to provide your feedback. Please note that this is completely confidential. It is going to go to our search committee, our search consultant. So it is 100% confidential. They will then gather all the information, all the responses, and provide that to the board to making this very difficult decision. So please take some time. If you want the old-fashioned way, there is a blue card that you can also just handwrite any of your comments. So we're going to go ahead and take a break now, and thank you for joining us.